Okay, we're rolling. Yeah,
I think we're
we're, we're
rolling.
we're back. We're back at it again. How you doing?
I'm good, man. How you
Welcome
doing,
back.
brother?
Welcome back.
Thank you, man.
Welcome back to
Appreciate
the
it.
motherland.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Love it here.
How has your stay been this time around?
This time around, it's been very busy, man. The moment I landed, it's been
Uh-huh.
work, 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 nonstop.
hmm
You know.
Yeah. So just update us on what you guys got up to in the time that you've been back in the States since we last spoke.
Yeah. Well, since we last spoke, man, it's been a lot of reorganizing and strengthening our brand, making sure we're good to go. Also, it's been a lot of work as far as with the legalities of land acquisition and
Hmm.
getting all the visas and everything squared away. So then that way, the Africans living in the diaspora can come back and
hmm
contribute to the not only the economy but the social well being of the continent, beginning
hmm
here in South Africa. So a lot of the work, the behind the scenes stuff, has been happening since I've been gone, man.
Okay.
And then also been connecting with a lot of business people over there in the States, telling them you need to come over here in South Africa, man.
Yeah.
There's something happening over here. Y'all better, you know what I mean? Get over here
Yeah.
and check it out.
So I wanted to speak to you about obviously I wanted to ask when did you come back again?
Let's see, I've been back here since late May.
Late May. So you were here for the elections.
About a month. Yeah, man.
We saw that.
Yeah. Very interesting, man.
Okay.
I had a feeling you were going to ask me about that.
No, because obviously our elections have been very contentious.
Mhm.
I think you guys went through it.
Yeah, we're
In
going through it now.
Well, I mean,
Oh,
just now in the recent elections
mm,
that have already been
mm,
done and wrapped up with a lot of challenges
mm,
to your elections.
mm-hmm.
And basically exposing the discrepancies within our
Yeah.
electoral systems.
Mm-hmm.
For you guys, it's the digital electrical systems
Yeah.
because your ballots get counted by a machine.
Right.
You know, so we saw Fox News having to pay a large multi-$100 million settlement
Yeah.
to Dominion, the company that manufactures your vote counting machines.
Mm-hmm.
And we've also seen a whole lot of court challenges. We saw an impeachment of an
Mm-hmm.
out of office president, a failed impeachment of an out of
Right.
office president, as well as an inquiry into what happened on the 6th of January
Mm.
when the voting or the votes were supposed to be declared, at the Electoral College at Congress.
Mm.
So, having observed that or having been through that, and experiencing it, as well as maybe the changing sentiments around the former president, Donald Trump. I mean, the last time we spoke, you did say that, you felt that black people or black Americans benefited more from the Trump presidency than they were benefiting
Mm.
currently in the Biden administration,
Yeah.
and even more than the previous administration before Trump, the Obama administration, for those two terms.
Yeah.
Do you still feel the same way?
I think it's been a bit of a smokescreen during the Obama era, but I do think there has been some advantage for a lot of people, both black and non-black,
Mm-hmm.
as far as other medical services. For example, the Obamacare,
Mm-hmm.
offering a little bit more access to medical services.
Yeah.
So all of that's cool, but when Obama was in office, I don't really believe that he did much specifically for the black community. A lot of his efforts have been toward the LGBTQ community.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when Trump came into office, he was motivated on business and enterprise. To me, he was more of a breath of fresh air because he wasn't polluted with heavy politics. He's not a politician, in my opinion. He's a
Yeah.
businessman.
Well, he's not a lifelong politician.
Lifelong politician, exactly. But he's a businessman, and to me, that was the first time that I can recollect that we had somebody in leadership who wasn't known as a politician specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And then he offered more employment opportunities, more business opportunities and trade. He also had his flaws. I'm not saying he was perfect,
Mm-hmm.
not whatsoever. I don't think any one president ever has been beneficial for Black people ever in the United States. Not
Yeah.
one ever. You know, but you're picking the lesser of two evils, and I think that's what most people are going into these voting halls knowing. You're just picking the lesser of two evils.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah. So, I mean, apart from just the process and the sentiments around the former president and the contenders for this next election that's coming up, you've got three front runners. One on the Democrat side with Joe Biden seeking a second term or re-election, and then
I still wonder if he's a cyborg, man. I'm not 100% sure, but go ahead.
you got Donald Trump also seeking re-election,
Yeah.
but for a second non-consecutive term.
Mm.
And then the wild card, and for the first time, that we've actually seen someone outside of the established two-party system, the independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And I guess for the first time, you guys are seeing a multi-party contestation outside of the normal Republican Democrat. And when you juxtapose that with what you've been able to observe in South Africa's democracy, which is a multi-party system, what would you say is the one thing that you're hopeful for with these coming elections in the United States?
Yeah, I would say the political climate of South Africa, the growth and development of South Africa and the rest of the other countries on the continent, and motivating more of the folks in the diaspora to return here to the continent. So I haven't spent a lot of energy on what's going on over there, right? Like, for example, Robert Kennedy Jr., I didn't know.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I didn't know because I haven't been involved in the politics or paying much attention over there because I see what's already happening and what's coming on a global platform. For example, the World Economic Forum and the agendas that they're pushing is going to affect not only America but everyone else. And America's already in a position from their lenses to lead the charge, but America's also facing a lot of problems. You know, Russia, China, North Korea, Saudi Arabia, BRICS alliance, everything. You know, like America stands under that judgment gavel. That you know. So as far as the election process, I didn't really know Robert Kennedy was coming up. But watching what happened here in South Africa and considering how it would look over there in America, I think there's pros and cons to everything. What I'm looking for would be a delay of time. That's my interest.
Insofar as?
In as much as, even though I know that America is on the brink of war because of the many years of bullying other countries, you know, and you know, I'm sure some Americans would say, "Oh, you're unpatriotic. You're not American." You're right. You guys call me African American. I'm choosing.
Well, I think
the first.
Being self-critical is the most patriotic American thing. It's one of the features that we know Americans for, is that they're self-critical.
Yeah.
They criticize their own government and their people all the
time.
All
day, every day.
Yeah, it's in your nature.
Even if there's not a day, they're criticizing it in the middle of that day. You know what I mean? Like, it just is what it is. America is known for having a voice, which is a good thing countrywide.
Yeah,
it's the bad part is that their voice also is a judgment against other nations, and I think that's what's coming back. Many of those other nations are saying, "Hey, wait a minute, enough is enough. Now we're going to align ourselves with one another against your bullying, against your antics." And I think if a lot of people in America are not careful, you know, you're going to fall under that gavel when America gets that judgment call. And so what my hope is that many of the Africans living in the diaspora over there would wake up quickly and start making plans to move, because what's happening already is many of folks from the white community, Asian community, some from the Latin community, they're already looking at other areas around the world, and they're moving. I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but in California, many of folks are shifting down to Mexico.
Yeah,
and they're working in Mexico.
In fact, there's a lot of deportations that have been happening in Mexico because of people overstaying.
Because of that. Yeah, because of that.
Americans overstaying,
because the economy is shifting dramatically over there.
Yeah.
You know, to where a lot of people cannot afford to survive. It's because a lot of those people from California, you know, a lot of them are white, just be transparent. They're working remote jobs. They're going to Mexico for a better living, quote unquote, while still working remotely. So they're paying into the economy as consumers, but they're not developing anything. And my hope is that with these elections and whoever is next president, or if it's a trilateral government, whatever it's going to be, is that blacks over there, Africans living in that area of the diaspora, come back to the continent and begin to establish business, establish ideas, things that could be great for development here on the continent. Now, I know for myself, I'm starting here in South Africa. My organization is here in South Africa. So I'm going to have a vested interest in South Africa. But the rest of the continent is in dire need of all the children of the diaspora, all Africans, to return back and to rebuild. Put most of your emphasis here. So I hope that answered your question. I'm hoping for a little bit of a delay of time so that many people can get a little bit of a moment to snap out of the trance that they're in, and consider home. That's how I see it.
So I mean, for a lot of South Africans, they're very insecure about their positions, especially Black South Africans, because of our history and how recent it is that we came out of our system of apartheid. And
30 years ago, right?
Yeah, or maybe even less. Maybe even less. You know what I mean?
All things
I don't
considered.
know. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you wonder if you're still in it. So they feel threatened when they see people coming in from all over the rest of the world. Whereas I think the South Africans of European descent, the white South Africans, they're more threatened by the gentrification or the escalation in the value of properties, because a whole lot of people are coming in with stronger currencies than ours and distorting the market. So that is the threat. And in our last conversation, when we spoke with Sbu, we did touch on that a bit, but I could see from when the episode actually came out, like a lot of comments, like a whole lot of apprehension. So what do you say to...
I was told not to look at those comments.
Yeah, no. You should. But what would you say to fellow African Americans that want to come through, right? But will then encounter some sort of resistance? How would you coach them into understanding the sentiments of native South Africans, as well as understanding the importance of their journey to return?
I would say the two priorities for I'll just deal with those of us Africans coming from America. The two priorities, number one would be patience, and the second would be value add. What I mean by that is patience, meaning have patience with our brothers and sisters on the continent, because of course they're going to be apprehensive, like on what you said, right? But then also have patience to give yourself some patience to learn, unlearn, relearn, be flexible, be available, you know what I mean? Be teachable, be coachable in the ways without being an idiot, though, because people will take advantage if you're an idiot, right? Don't be a dummy, but but still be patient with the brothers and sisters, because they have every right to be apprehensive considering colonization. At the same time, I think those who are in South Africa, be patient with us, because we're coming from the belly of the beast. You know what I mean? So slavery was no joke.
Yeah.
And we're still feeling the effects of centuries of that, just like you are feeling effects of the centuries of apartheid and colonization. So I think number one, for those coming from the diaspora, specifically from America, be patient. Be patient with one another. Be patient with our brothers and sisters here, and be genuine about that, right? But then the second part, the value add, don't come here looking for jobs. Come here looking to create opportunities for people to be able to advance themselves, right? Create the jobs, create the businesses, also create alliances and partnerships with the right folks. Obviously, you got to vet people, but create those alliances with people, and thus making economic changes, technological advancements, humanitarian efforts, being in the communities, go to the rural areas, be a brother, be a sister, be an elder, be a friend, be a son, be a daughter, be relational. I've learned here from my time in South Africa. Um, I've been in South Africa for over a year and a half,
Cumulatively.
collectively.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And so my journey started June 2022, right?
Okay.
But yeah, cumulative, it's been a year and a half, over a year and a half. And one thing I've learned is that relationships is the highest form of currency. Relationship is everything.
Yeah.
Show love, be genuine, um, be willing to learn, be willing to teach what you know, because what you know, being from way over there in America, is very helpful. I don't remember how Spoo said it when we last met, but he said he used a word that basically meant seeing around the corner. And those of us coming from America, we see around the corner and see exactly where South Africa is going. If we don't tell brothers and sisters, you're going to hit that corner, and that corner is going to be a monster. But if we tell you in advance, you might divert, you might go the other direction for something better, right?
Yeah.
So I think that would be the first thing I would tell people over in the U.S. coming over this way: be patient, be genuine, and add value to the economy, to the people, to everything here. And don't. And one other thing I would say is, bring the knowledge that you've gained from the States over here. Just don't bring the Western culture.
Yeah, because obviously it's an inferior culture in that it is stripped away from its roots.
Yep.
And I guess it's been perverted in various ways through capitalism
and even think about the word you just used, roots, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that old movie, Roots,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
They whipped that dude. What's your name? He kept saying Akunta Kente. He said, no, your name is Toby. What's your name? And he kept beating him until he finally submitted and said, my name is Toby. Yeah. So consider that as our reality. That's not just a movie. That's literally our history beaten into a new identity.
Yeah.
So culturally, we were beaten out of our culture, which has always been Bantu culture, African culture. We were beaten out of that and adopted something else. And many a times, and I'm sure, anybody who watches this video, the trolls are going to say whatever they're going to say. But many a times those in Black America would say, no, we do have culture. No, you have picked up things.
Yeah. Or you've created a culture.
Or you created a culture out of your conditions. I was a community member of that. I participated in that because that's all we knew. But it's when you come home to the continent and you realize, wait a minute, nah, that's what we knew over there. That's not really us. Over here, this is really us. We've really got to learn and unlearn and relearn all over again,
Yeah. So, I mean, apart from that, there's lots of political developments that have happened in South Africa since your trip back to the United States. So you've witnessed the elections. You've seen the outcomes, as contested as it is, with a lot of Black South Africans feeling like we're re-entering the apartheid system, with
that was interesting.
The former liberation movement, I guess, succumbing to pressure from the right and the West to form a coalition with the Democratic Alliance. And the thing that makes the Democratic Alliance so suspect to a lot of people who might not be aware, prior to the elections, the Democratic Alliance wrote to the United States and asked for help in observing our elections. And now that the elections have happened, there's claims of election interference and also the IT systems that were provided to our Independent Electoral Commission, or our so-called Independent Electoral Commission, came from an American company. And while the results were being reported on and counted, there was a system failure and a new user interface.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing. It all sounds familiar to me, but go ahead.
Yes, because you guys went through it in 2020, and 2021. So we're going through it, having seen what happened with the elections in the United States. So we expected something, But right now, we feel like, there's a heavy influence coming from
Mm-hmm.
the powers that be in the
Mm-hmm.
United States.
Mm-hmm.
Um, why do you think that the African American community, and I'd pin it down to the Congressional Black Caucus
Mm.
in particular, hasn't been more forthcoming with assistance in ensuring that our democratic processes, are not circumvented, or the will of the South African people is not subverted, knowing full well the nefarious actions of the deep state and their regime change, tactics that have been employed all over the world. I mean, Latin America, for one, you know,
Mm.
um, since, I mean, I guess Pinochet uh, in Chile, in Colombia, I think Allende,
Mm.
you know, and in many other countries in Latin America. I mean, even most recently, Lula has returned to presidency in Brazil, but before then, there was allegations of U.S. interference in Bolsonaro's election, U.S. interference in the prosecution of Dilma Rousseff and Lula as well, and there was allegations of interference in the rejection of the most recent results of the elections in Brazil, when there was, I guess, January 6th-esque protests, where Bolsonaro supporters stormed the capital in Brazil as well.
Wow.
So for us, we expect maybe, fairly or unfairly, for our African American brothers to stand by us like they've stood by us in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I did tell you in the last conversation that we had, that a lot of the lobby that came from around the world to free South Africa from the apartheid system
Mm-hmm.
uh, emanated from the United States, and was a direct result of certain concessions that the US government made with regards to civil rights.
When you mentioned the Congressional Black Caucus, and I know some people might want me to do this real elaborate response, but it really doesn't take much of that. I think it's a matter of their priority. What is priority in regards to their response? Right now, there's a lot of hell to consider over there in the U.S.,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the South Africa, from their point of view, is it may be on the priority list, but not at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think their lack of involvement is based on that. And this isn't trying to protect them or even throw shade at them. It's just I think that's the reality. They're more focused on the things that are happening over on that side of the water than the things happening over here.
Yeah.
But there are some who are highly interested in what's going on over here and what can be done.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it is a mutual fight. Uh, um, when I was here during the elections, I was here even prior to that,
Mm. Yeah.
before I left. It just kind of watching like what's happening. And when the voting happened on May 29th and they did the count, I started looking at the percentage of the ANC at the top and the DA, and then I think it was the MK
MK.
party that came in.
Mm.
It's like 6, 7 months, just 6, 7
Yeah.
months ago, just came in and took over KZN and many other areas by storm. And then EFF, and then the other parties, the IFP, et cetera. And I
Mm.
started looking, and I was when I first seen it, I'm like, okay, these numbers will shift, but the DA kept increasing,
Mm.
and to me, it said two things: one, a unified front. Many of those who are the minorities in the country, in
Yeah.
my opinion, many of those who are the minorities in the country, from the Asians to the whites to the Indians,
Yeah.
etc., are probably all coming together as a collective voting DA. So it's easy for them to go up, but they're still a minority
Yeah.
group.
I mean, between the Asians and the coloreds,
Mm-hmm.
that's
Colors,
less
yeah.
than, the coloreds and the Asians. That's less than 5%,
Right,
and with the whites, it's just over 4% of the
right.
population. Yeah.
But consider, and I think the blacks in South Africa, I think as far as I looked at the census in 2022, I think it
Mm.
was 80.1% of the population here in South Africa black.
Yeah, black African, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because we've got a different distinction between black and colored.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right. So, but some people who are colored don't necessarily identify more toward the black side.
yeah,
They just classify in that middle ground, that colored, right?
yeah. The
So,
ones that are passing.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I looked at it from those lenses. Then I also, watching the DA rise up quickly. Then I looked at it from the lens. So they're unified. Then I looked at it from the lenses of there are even some, and I remember one particular person I had a conversation with who was a black South African who was confident in voting DA. Yeah.
really.
Yeah, I actually had the conversation. Is
Wow.
this the camera on me? I actually had a conversation with a black South African voting DA.
Well,
Hardcore.
I won't lie. I haven't spoken to anyone
Uh,
that's black that voted DA.
mhm.
You know, um,
This was prior to the elections.
yeah, no, that I understand.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, like for me, I always assumed that something is going on with the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But when the question was being asked, which one of us voted for the DA, no one put their hand up.
Right. So I think honestly, if anyone who is black South African voting DA, it's a fear factor, a fear of what if the businesses leave? What if the economy goes down because many investors will not come? And I think it's a narrowed view.
Yeah.
It's
So
basically
what was his justification?
that
Was it
person's
that?
that person's justification. Oh, that
Oh,
person.
his or hers justification. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
I,
don't
I
know.
want to say it
We
like
won't
that, so I don't
gender.
say
Yeah.
if it was a her or a him.
Yeah.
But that person, I'll let y'all be the judge.
Well, I mean, like, listen, like I already told you that no one is really putting up their hand.
Yeah.
So we don't want to name any names, but we just like to understand the sentiment that is behind
Mm-hmm.
the people that are being seen to be betraying what we call the National Democratic Revolution.
Right, and honestly, it was so with that person, it was more so an economic reason. But I looked and I'm like, okay, there's other ways to increase the economy. There's other ways to make it happen, which is why I think it's a narrowed view. It's not a broadened view. It's like,
Yeah.
what about those who are black in other areas who would love to bring business here to South Africa? The question is, can they? Look at the laws. Look at the gatekeepers that are keeping people from being able to come here and stay here to invest here, to build here, right? And not just here, but what about opening the borders for trade? Many a country, there are some other African countries that are opening things up for trade, which offers way more opportunity for business. You'll even find some who are South Africans saying, hey, South Africa's my home. I love Mzansi. I'm going to go ahead and move up, though, to Uganda because there's a business opportunity or job opportunity there, and it's allowing trade to happen between both countries. That's a result of growth. But,
yeah, I think one of the things.
But there are some people who voted DA. It blew my mind, but it was for the conversation was centered around the economy, and it was just a shock.
So for me, I mean, because of the lack of black participation in the economy or the broader economy of South Africa, I find those kinds of justifications a little bit misplaced. Well, in fact, grossly misplaced because the DA themselves have had governance within what is a quasi-federalism, what we call a province, the Western Cape.
The Western Cape,
yeah.
Which they're trying to separate
like
to be its own country.
I don't think that is possible. Just the size of the economy in the Western Cape, it's not even I think the third.
You don't think
largest.
It's possible?
It's not. It's
been a hard push, though.
Yeah, as much as it's been a hard push, a lot of their trade comes from within the borders of South Africa, and a lot of the demand for the products that are either produced there, manufactured there, or imported in through the ports of the Western Cape are consumed throughout the rest of the country in the inland provinces. So just from an economic perspective, it would be really hard to separate the two. In fact, the Western Cape would literally collapse. It depends on the trade that comes in. I mean, the products that come from the Western Cape, a lot of this fruit comes from the Western Cape. Okay, maybe not even the citrus, maybe some of it comes from the Western Cape, also comes from Limpopo. That would be more beneficial to them than the people of South Africa. So they're saying whatever it takes and doing whatever it takes to convince South Africans that, the West has our best interests at heart, and forgetting
Right.
that we have an extractive economy and it's not
Yeah.
really.
And it's just the same old antics as it's always been, and I think that's the problem. It's convincing the population that the West is the best. In reality, no, it's not. Why do you think you get northern countries who have been colonized by France? They're like, hey, we're done. We're tired of it. You guys got to go, because you guys are
The
exploiting
Sahel
us.
region.
The Sahel region, right? You guys are exploiting us. Even the Congo, which is still questionable at this time in regards to if they're going to give them the boot or not. But yeah, you get the West. Just being honest, they do not have. It's just like in business. I remember somebody sent this to me, a quote from a movie. It said, "One of the biggest questions to ask in business is what's in it for me." Right, and so the West is always going to think, "What's in it for me?" Right.
You got
But
cheap
they're only
labor,
cheap labor, which
low cost of
so
living.
I'm down here. I look at some of these manufacturers,
high interest rates.
high interest rate. I look at some of these manufacturers. I'm like, oh, so this is where you guys had your business going. This is what you've been doing, from L'Oreal to a list of other companies down here. I'm like, oh, because you're getting cheaper labor, so you're keeping most of your money, but then you're selling your products for big. Well, it's the same concept. When it's the same concept of mining. That's why I say Africa's not underdeveloped. It's overexploited.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Exactly. So we end up appearing poor, but in actual fact, we're very rich.
Yeah, it's just the mindset of the people, though. The people have to begin to realize that factor.
Yeah.
Like, no, you are rich. You really don't need the other areas. They need you. The other continents and countries, they need you. They need what you have to offer. This is so I was down here, and the last time I was down here, when we spoke prior to us meeting and speaking, right? I was down here having a conversation with somebody South African, and I said, or they said to me, they said, with this war that's going on in Ukraine and China and Taiwan having issues and the talks of war with America, they said, man,
we recognize China. I mean, Taiwan is part of China in South Africa. Yeah, but yeah,
because it was.
Well, I mean, for us, we don't recognize Taiwan as a separate country.
Ah, got you.
Yeah.
So they were having a conversation with me, and they said, we're afraid that there's going to be nuclear war that even hits Africa, even here in Mzansi. And I said, it's not going to hit in Africa yet. It's like no time soon. And the reason be for that is because the rest of the world's survival is contingent upon the survival of Africa. The minerals, the food, everything. But what they want to do is wipe out as many of the Africans as possible. So what the focus has to be is not so much as make Africa great again. One love, one Africa. No, the focus has to be make the African great again. Then you'll get one love, one Africa.
Yeah.
The emphasis has to be the people.
Yeah, I think, and
the West exploits it.
Yeah, that's lost on a lot of our brothers in the diaspora, especially in the West. That's why, I did cite the case of the Congressional Black Caucus. And you're saying that maybe South Africa is not a priority. And I think that's a miscalculation, especially on the part of, the Congressional Black Caucus, but it's in particular just the African American community, because what you can never get with your 11 to 13% population is a secure economic base for African Americans in America. There's just too many other competing priorities from other groups, whether it be the Asians, whether it be the Hispanics, or the native people from the Americas in general, and the colonizers from the West as well. They would never allow African Americans to actually self-determine. There's always some level of dependency on the systems that are controlled by white Americans. White supremacy is entrenched in that way. And in the same way, because of the economic disparities between our nations as well, they also try to sow some sort of discontent amongst us, keep us fighting
One another.
one another, and keep us from seeing the value that we can provide to one another. So,
seeing that there's way more similarities than there are differences.
Yeah. So I've always thought of African Americans as, our lucky brothers that got to go on foreign vacations. You know what I mean?
But you found out the truth when you went over there, right?
Well, I mean, I found out the truth before I went over there. I went to Gorée Island in Senegal before I went to the United States.
I was going to say that
first.
is
So I looked
lucky.
out from, the point of no return.
Yeah.
And I just imagined touching the ground in the United States of America. And then I finally went over there, and with the knowledge of how our brothers departed and ended up finding themselves there. And so I guess the one thing that I've been trying to teach or share with my African American brothers, and just, other African immigrants that have either been naturalized in the United States of America, or those that are just living and working there, is that returning home is an economic imperative. It's for your own security, and it should be the number one priority. And if you cannot physically be there, at least you need to be able to ensure that you've got some form of economic participation.
So when you said it was a miscalculation, let me say one thing is that it's not at the top of the priority list. What's happening in America right now is a divide between sorry, they've got so many doggone acronyms, but there are different groups, the FBA, which is and then there's another one, indigenous Black Africans or indigenous Black Americans. There's different groups or whatever.
Yeah, the African descendants of slaves, so the
Yes.
ADOS group, and then
so you've got all these different groups. A lot of people, as you know, you over in the U.S., a lot of them there's a major confusion happening where a lot of them are thinking, no, we didn't come from slavery. We've already been here. And is there some truth to there being Black people or people who are African who were in America prior to the slave trades? Yes. But for the bulk of us, no, they wiped out a lot of the indigenous people when they came over there. Yeah, some of them were, retained some of their lands. That's cool. But a lot of us came over in the slave trades. It just is what it is. Yeah. They even had farms, for us to keep duplicating. To keep bring this lady in, so this man could keep having sex, impregnate her, impregnate this other one. They were sex farms.
Yeah.
So for what? For more workers.
Breeding, yeah.
Breeding farms. And so it's like we're dealing with enough stuff over there with the confusion and what's priority is what I'm getting at. The priority is trying to figure out our own stuff. You know what I mean? And then coming over here, but to your point also with the economic imperative is that, in order for us to grow at all, period, Africa has to be at the top of that list.
Yeah, exactly.
It does happen. Not just South Africa, all Africa has to be at the top of that list economically. But I think what has to happen personally is that it cannot just be a matter of Blacks in America or Africans in America doing trade and business and gaining from Africa and sharing with Africa from across the water. It's more advantageous coming here and doing it, being here on the ground.
Yeah. Well, I think
so the things that are happening.
Yeah. Without them being on the ground, I think it's impossible for them to actually retain any of that benefit, even if they do get some gain from Africa. Because if they repatriate it back to the United States, again, they're back in the system that they don't control. You don't control that system, and all the wealth that you have been able to create or regenerate will then be extracted by the white supremacist system that dominates over there.
Yeah. So and as well as all the other countries around the world, just realistically, all the other countries are influenced by America. Yeah. Influenced by Western Europe.
Yeah.
it's been that way for centuries now.
Yeah.
You know.
So we're in a more, I guess, multipolar world with America's dominance uh, waning a bit right now. But I think what we're experiencing, you know, what or the turbulence that we're experiencing, or what could be described as the last kicks of a dying horse. So what we've witnessed in the South African election, especially with interference from American actors as well, is that it's got a knock-on effect on the rest of the continent and the credibility of democratic processes throughout the rest of the continent. So our head of our election system also headed up the elections in the DRC, or in the Democratic Republic of Congo, installing the
it's
the
funny.
current
It's funny
president.
you mentioned that with the that they that the DA called upon America and
Yeah.
they utilized their systems over here. It's like, you guys know that America had it all messed up themselves. Why would you utilize the same system? They haven't figured it all out, right?
Well, I mean,
Because it's corrupted.
it is.
It's created to be that way, which is why you have Zuma and the MK party saying, no, we need a recount. EFF did the same thing.
Or revote, yeah. Yeah.
It's because a lot of those votes, I think from what I was checking out on the news a couple of days ago, I think there was like 9.3 million votes that were
Unaccount. Well, yeah. I mean, we still need to hear all that evidence in like a court of law.
Yeah, of course.
The allegation is that there are 9.3 million votes unaccounted for, but I don't think that the current controversy around that is the bulk of the revelations that people are uncomfortable with this previous election. The IEC has had, I guess, 29 years to prepare for the current election. You know what I mean? And I guess 7 different elections to conduct, or 7 different national elections
from 94 to
as well as the multiple midterm elections, which are for local government and municipal governments, or locales and cities and towns, and those have happened as well without much of the controversy that we experienced this time around. And another thing is that voter apathy has been something that has been a concern for us. And when you're concerned about voter apathy and you're trying to get a high voter turnout so that we've got a broader participation, and we get more of a better sense, we've got a bigger sample size to deduce the will of the people from, with a greater voter turnout, one would expect the IEC to be prepared for that outcome. And what we found is that they were severely underprepared in many places, especially in KZN, which was an MK stronghold. And because of their lack of preparedness, we lost a lot of voters who waited for too long in the lines, who did not understand the process, who weren't educated adequately enough about the process itself.
But I think the difference with them, when you use the Jewish folks as example, is that at least they have a country a country that's backing them, or a country that would say they are of us. They belong here. If anything goes crazy in any other place around the world, these particular folks belong here. But the Africans in the diaspora, not just America, but all over the world, many of them have struggles identifying which country do I come from, because it's been divided. The continent has been divided due to the Berlin Conference. So they're like, okay, which region, which area? If we do Ancestry.com or African Ancestry or T3andMe and all these other ancestry services, we have a hard time identifying exactly where. They'll tell you, oh, you come from this side of West Africa. It's like, okay, West, but what about the Central? What about the East? What about the South? I've even heard from people in South Africa who said, oh, you guys, The struggles of you guys in America doesn't relate to us. We don't know anything about that. We're not part of that. We're here. We're South Africa. This is what someone said to me,
Mm.
and I had to say to that person, like, so according to history, you guys here in South Africa migrated out of the Congo, right? And they said, yeah. I said, guess where we came from?
Mm.
Same area, the Congo.
Yeah.
Just we were taken out before you got out.
Mm.
Or let's do it in reverse. You got out before we were taken out. Some of us
Yeah.
were still there and were captured. You guys got out of there. It's the same folks.
Yeah.
We just happened to migrate to different areas for what? Because of wars, for safety. I think the fatigue, when you said fatigue, I think that's absolutely right. It's because they're dealing with what you called earlier with the Africans living in America. There's a cap.
Mm-hmm.
Soon as we think we're winning,
you hit the ceiling, the glass
hit that ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Soon as you think, oh, no, this is all you got to do. You can make millions. Yes, you can.
Mm-hmm.
But you're still at the ceiling. Mm. And if you're going to hit to that billionaire status, there's going to be some compromise. But only a few will ever hit that status. And even if you are a billionaire, you're still segregated. Or not segregated, excuse me. You're still separated. No, I'll even say that. There's still a segregation in that billionaire club.
Yeah.
You're still, Jay-Z said it with the song of OJ, the story of OJ. One rich nigga, poor nigga, house nigga, field nigga, you still nigga. Mm. That's how they see it, and that's how it's always going to be. But a lot of folks are fatigued because of what they've dealt with there. Then seeing the atrocities happening here on the continent, it's a massive fatigue. But then also you are getting a lot of people in the diaspora coming back to Africa, but are fearful of being scammed. Mm. Being transparent, man, I've been scammed out of thousands. Mm. And I know many others who work with us who've been scammed out of thousands. Mm. People having their homes bulldozed. Mm. Up in other, I almost call that the countries that I know, but I won't call the other countries out, right? But in certain areas, they're having their homes bulldozed. And then on the news, they'll say it's this reason or that reason. But when you start talking to actual people who have their homes bulldozed, they tell a different story. And I always believe it's this side, that side, and God's side. So there's, of the story, right? Mm-hmm. But when I look at this, I'm like, man, Black people worldwide are fatigued. We're tired. Tired of being separated, tired of being regulated. Mm-hmm. You can only go so far. You can be successful, but only so far. Mm-hmm. We're tired of being oppressed, tired of being depressed, tired of being suppressed, tired. The fatigue is real.
Yeah.
I think for me, though, when I look at it from the lenses of, even though we're tired, even though all these things are stacked against us, the hunger is there. Mm-hmm. Because it's innate greatness that's in each and every one of us. There's opportunity. And folks can come back. They should come back. They should invest. They should be concerned. But I do also understand the priorities of the areas in which they're living in. It's not just America, but even those who I know who are traveling back and forth and spending years in Brazil. Even folks in Brazil don't necessarily. Matter of fact, I think there was a YouTuber named Walton who was in Brazil, and many of them they identify as Afro-Latino. They don't necessarily identify as African.
Oh yes, mode. Yeah. I saw that as well.
Yeah. So and
I was talking about the racism.
Yeah.
And the white supremacy. I mean, we get a lot of that. I mean,
absolutely.
We'd call them DA voters in South Africa.
Makes sense, though, right?
You know what I mean? So, I mean, I don't want to be unfair to our brothers.
And I'm not using that as an excuse, though.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I'm just saying I don't want to be unfair to them and say they're just fatigued with helping South Africa or helping Africans in general. I've also seen a lot of fatigue in helping African Americans by the more affluent and richer African Americans. I mean, right now, Jay-Z is, putting $300 million or raising $300 million from white people to promote private education for high-performing Black students in underprivileged areas or underprivileged communities, and not really putting money down to uplift the public schooling system in those systems, even though,
it's a media stunt. I'm
there's
sorry. Go ahead.
yeah there's I guess universal school choice now
Mm,
in America.
mm,
You can get a school outside of your district, a public school outside of
yeah,
your district for your child if you feel it's better than the school that's
yeah.
inside your
Before they
district.
didn't allow that, people were actually going to parents were going to jail for that,
Yeah.
spending some time in prison because of that.
So I mean,
It's crazy.
now that there's universal school choice, you'd think that the investment from the richer African Americans would be in uplifting the public schools in the African American communities that they come from, or that they're trying to uplift. But you're not seeing that. I
Mm,
mean, Jay Z is one example,
mm,
but Oprah Winfrey has the same thing here in South Africa. She's got an all girls school,
mm.
which for a country where discrimination wasn't based on gender, it was based on race, you know, is a bit of, an inappropriate solution.
Mm.
You know what I mean? To say all the girls must leave their community, get better educated than the boys that they're leaving behind, even though those are the future generations' parents,
Right.
So there's a disparity in what black people need and what black people think they can do for their communities once they get to a certain level. How do we realign our priorities? Because I think that is where our conversation is alluding to, or what our conversation is alluding to. How do we realign our priorities to crystallize what is most necessary for Black people all over the world?
So I want to speak specifically to the educational part of that because being formerly in the education field,
Well, once a teacher, always a teacher,
I know, man. I
I
might as
guess.
well just embrace. I'm still in it. I'm
Yeah,
still here.
yeah.
But with that, I remember I was a part of a program teaching all black boys, and this program was made. It was made by black men teaching black boys to become black men.
Uh-huh.
That's what the focus of the program was, and
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it. Right, but one of the reasons they said that we needed to focus on black boys is because black boys in the educational system are the lowest performing
Mm-hmm.
among all other races and even among girls.
Well, I mean, even in
Right?
the schooling system, males in general
Yeah.
perform worse.
Right. But why? And that's my point. So when
Yeah.
you say how do we grow? How do we make this better for the black community at large? Invest into the growth and the development of black boys
Mm-hmm.
as well as black girls too. But a lot of the programs that are out there right now put a lot of emphasis on black girls.
Yeah, well, it looks good. It reads better in the
It
newspapers.
reads better. Why does it read better? Because the already global approach for promoting feminism.
Yeah.
And feminism or women's liberation rights or equality, which is just an agenda to allow more LGBTQ and women's rights movements to come up. But what about the boys?
Mm.
Why are the boys in these movements identified or criminalized?
Mm.
Right? The growth and development of the boys is what you're going to need.
Mm.
Strong men, strong communities.
Mm-hmm.
Strong women, strong communities. Strong families, strong communities.
Mm.
We are so divided and now pitted against each other. But when you start, answering your question, in my view,
Mm.
strengthening both at the same time, not just one, and not just promoting the one that translates best across the media worldwide, that looks good in the newspapers or whatever, making sure there's a solid emphasis on them boys as well. And it's a program like that I was part of. I also had duplicated it myself and started an LLC in the States,
Mm-hmm.
and actually bringing the same program and idea out here to South Africa, because I believe that every single black boy and black girl can actually grow at their pace and be great, but value one another's differences.
Mm. It just needs to be nurtured.
It just has to be nurtured.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess we face the same problem here in South Africa.
I'm learning.
We've got some black billionaires as well whose priorities need to be realigned from just wealth accumulation to assisting wealth redistribution. And we've got as well a community that is very much got an anxiety about self-determination.
Mm.
They still want some sort of overseer
Yeah.
from, the West or Europe. Currently, that is the context in which we're going into the seventh administration in this government, if it still holds and still stands. And what would your comments be as an African American, just looking at what the hopes for South Africa were 30 years ago and what has materialized now that you're here on the shores? Like, if you could be critical, which is something that, we struggle to do once we reach certain levels of success. We feel like it's a little bit unfair to criticize, but it's hampering us from improving our condition.
So criticize which aspect? Because I know,
like, where this current juncture, based on where we come from and what the hopes were for South Africa.
Honestly, I think, man, I gotta criticize.
Yeah, be honest.
All right,
you're gonna take some criticism.
I'm gonna take some hits for this one. It is what it is. I think a lot of South Africans are scared. That's been my experience. Mm-hmm. Talking, I talk with everybody. I think a lot of South Africans are scared. Not it's like a lot of South Africans are accustomed to somebody always ruling over them, telling them what to do.
Or someone white.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
specifically somebody white or somebody of a different ethnicity. Mm-hmm. And it's really a shame, but I remember learning from my grandmother. She died at 80 years old in 2013. And I remember learning from her that, and as well as, my other elders, that's how it was when she was growing up. Blacks in America, Africans in America were scared, always listening. Yes, master. Yes, master. Whatever you say, master. Yes, we'll get it done here, boss. It's not a problem. It's like we're past that now. At least over there, over the waters we are, and over here, it's like it's like going back in time. It literally looks like going back in time. I was at this apartment.
Like how far back in time?
I'll probably say 20, 30 years back in time. Let's see, this is 2024. Probably say about, even longer than that. Actually, no. Y'all, I would say in that dynamic, that relational dynamic between blacks and whites, y'all are probably in the late 60s.
Okay, 70s, 60s.
I ain't gonna. Hey man, listen. He told me be critical.
Yeah,
I gotta be real.
Be honest.
Y'all literally are like in the late 60s. I would just say 60s, maybe even 50s. Mm-hmm. That yes, master. Yeah, you're right, boss. But then afterwards, when the boss walk away, you have a conversation amongst one another. Like, man, he's always mistreating us. And I know because I was at an apartment complex a while ago, and back in 2022, matter of fact, and there's like 3 different security companies that came in there. First security company was there. They got fired. A new group came in. Fired. A new group came in. And when I was talking with each group, I remember one time the manager who was there, a white guy, he was just talking to him disrespectfully, like I told you. He said, I told you
in a
guys,
condescending tone.
Yeah, condescending tone. I told you guys to be over here, and that the people are not supposed to be coming through this gate like that. You need to check from now on. You need to go. Matter of fact, I need you over here at this elevator. You make sure you. I'm like, y'all are the majority. What the hell are you allowing this white boy talking like this? Do you realize in America, even though we are the minority, we would have slapped the heck out of the person.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, so slap the shit out of him.
Yeah, I would have slapped the shit out of him. That's what would have happened.
Yeah.
Because we have that fight in us. It's like we're tired of being mistreated, right?
Yeah.
I don't think you guys are tired yet.
Yeah.
I don't think you guys are tired yet. You ain't hit that.
We're tired of fighting because we fought. We fought it all the way. I mean, we're the last country to realize.
And that's why I say back to the
freedom,
50s, 60s.
But we haven't realized our democracy. And we haven't democratized our access to resources and the factors of production. I think that's a fair criticism.
Because look at, if I could add one more thing, consider up in the other countries where they're having a revolution.
Well, yeah, in the Sahel region.
The Sahel region.
If you go further, just north of South Africa, if you go to Zimbabwe, I mean, they're probably in the 1800s.
Oh, that's bad. I haven't been there yet.
Because, I mean,
It's not good.
the white population is much smaller,
Yeah.
but they still dominate. I mean, in Zimbabwe, white people still call blacks boy.
Hell no. That don't work with me.
No, I'm
I
serious.
would
They
have slapped
do.
the shit out of you. I ain't gonna lie.
No,
to you.
seriously. It's like, get out the way, boy.
Yeah,
So, I
hell
mean,
no.
I think we'll take in that constructive criticism and we'll observe the outcomes of what's happening in the process now. But, like, thank you for being so candid as well. And also opening my mind to what could be the possible solutions at connecting the diaspora and the mother continent even further so that we can truly realize that economic base for black people to self-determine.
Absolutely.
No, glad to have you back, brother.
My God, appreciate it, man.
Thank you so much.
Glad to be back.
Yeah, I think that wraps up our conversation for now. We'll put it on pause and we'll come back to it and see how the situation develops in South Africa. And if it was you that voted for the DA, the next episode's for you.